unlike the first one where a monster was unleashed on our world, we had our heroes traveling to the place where these things live.
Even though the fairies in this film are the bad guys, you still see the beauty of that world, which is something Guillermo did wonderfully in Pan's Labyrinth. That fairy tale world, he shared the dangers and the beauty of that world.
The depth of his accumulated knowledge based on this voracious curiosity to read anything and everything about why people need to tell stories is what sets him apart from just a guy who's making movies.
I spent a lot of time whispering in Guillermo's ear, remember, this is your follow-up to Pan's Labyrinth. You can't let people think Pan was a fluke.
The challenge was to try to make the movie the size we wanted on the budget we had. Because obviously, the budget is big, but it's not as big as some of the gigantic summer movies. So trying to make it look as big, if not bigger, than those movies within that budget, that was a challenge.
The movie's considerably bigger, but he's kept it anchored in character and story.
And the fairies chatting, and transmitting it. John?
It seems like a little friend here remembers market sounds and voices.
Very nice.
I don't think you could have a better choice than Guillermo for this material, and he did a great job on the first one, and he understands the product.
Guillermo's interested in parables. He's interested in parallel universes, and he's interested in telling a story in a fantastical world.
I'd rather you take the beat up front, than in the middle.
Let's go.
He's a little boy with this humongous imagination.
He has a way of being able to help people go back to being children.
This kind of unbelievable creativity and the things he creates and creatures he creates and stories. On the other side is this absolute knowledge and understanding of what he's doing. There's no guesswork whatsoever.
This is certainly stranger than other comic book films.
Gentlemen, welcome to Troll Market.
This movie is so full of memorable locations, places where you turn a corner and you go, oh my God, I've never seen that before.
This is really epic in scope. The worlds that they travel through are truly epic and mythic.
By comparison, the first movie had a few sets, big sets, but very few, and this one is, I think, all of it, set construction.
We spent 3 times as much money building sets, so everything has just gotten blown out.
It's amazing, the sets in this film. It's everything, it's all built. It feels like Guillermo wants to see his vision and he wants to be in control of that idea and that vision and creating these incredible sets.
I mean, I would take my little bike and I would go from set to set to set. It was huge.
I think both Guillermo and I felt with the first Hellboy film that we went a little light with the creatures. So going into a second film, we knew we wanted more variety.
Every single image that you see in the film, every single creature that you see sprung from his imagination.
The thing is with both Mike Mignola and Guillermo is that they go back and forth and they just allow themselves to dream, essentially, and the two of them have a relationship where their dreams somehow manifest themselves exponentially when they're in the room together. So there's just no stopping the insanity.
It is an extraordinary film that makes you remember what it's like to have an imagination.
This is why I got into it. I mean, you know, this is Hamlet and King Lear and all those things, you know, rolled into one.
A great story, just sets and ideas and creatures have come to life actually three-dimensionally that I've never seen before, even in my wildest dreams.
I think the set pieces are more varied, the creatures are more varied, they're funnier, the fights are very different one from another. So all in all, there are much more flavors, different flavors in this movie than in the first one.
You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll wet your pants.
Oh, perfect, great table. It's amazing. Starting to miss everybody here. here, please hold each other's hands. Let's invoke the power of the furniture. No, you know, the thing is, everybody here read the screenplay. So, you know, we talked a little bit with some of you were not here. I think that the main thing is to say that it's about giving an overview of the spirit of the design in the movie, which will be, I think, very different from the first one. This is a world that should come in with its own logic. So when you design a creature, all I want to feel is that this creature exists somewhere. I want to emphasize on the design of the creatures is except when you want to go all for movement, keep them, the silhouette and all that, keep it elegant and simple, you know, because a lot of them are going to be there very briefly, make an impression and leave. I want very much for Mike to be involved in doing his take on some of the creatures when we talk. That will be used as a springboard or as a placeholder until you guys come up with something better than that. You know, I think that most of the time you have an idea of what a troll is, what an ogre looks like, what a goblin looks like, and all that kind of stuff. And what I want to do is avoid that at all costs. Create creatures that you feel are beautiful and attractive, and this is the spirit that was there when we went and did Pan's Labyrinth for very little money, but the designs were new. We can have blue screen pieces that we then erased. For example, if we take this beautifully designed human shape, but a creature that, like Abe, we spread the eyes apart, you know, we put the ears over here, and we keep the actor's mouth and nose, and we need to erase the top, but we change the geometry of that guy. I'm all for it. We did that with the legs of the Perlman on Pants, and it looks really just eerie and creepy. So if it's about removal, removal is pretty cheap for a creature that is going to be 3-4 pages there. So I urge you to read the screenplay, for example, and say, what can I do in this type of situation, maximizing the impact of that guy. The only other rule is no aliens. You know, nothing that resembles something that would be remotely sci-fi. It has to have personality, it has to have a stance and a sense of fantasy that is not reminiscent of sci-fi type of things, you know. These creatures are creatures that are surviving in the sewers. So they're not at the optimum. The coloring of these creatures, we need to take this in account. We can do a great pristine paint job and then break it with, you know, moss or roots or scars, damage.
Yeah.
Nothing shiny, and that's where we also differ from Men in Black, for example. The idea with the elves is to make them in muted colors, almost like they're monochrome. Prince Nuada and Prince Nuala, they are very subtle variations in their skin. You know, so the eyes may be in between gray and golden, but there's a flatness to the forehead, but there has to be a beauty to the design of the male and female of the elves. With King Balor, what Mike and I were talking about is to give him a sense of the ancient. Mike was suggesting that it's almost like, literally or not, he should feel like he has cobwebs on top of the makeup.
Things like the hair becoming so thin that it just kind of is draped over everything, almost like cobwebs. And that, yeah, he's just almost completely colorless.
If we can make it that cobwebs are things, what Mike is suggesting, I would love to actually include that feeling of cobwebs in the makeup or in the clothes or in things that make you almost feel that the prince is right. You know, Mike's idea with Wink, he's muscle, and we should really show him, you know, he's missing a hand, and the idea is to, his hand would be kind of Hellboyish in the sense that it should be a simple shape that he then closes and it becomes a maze, and of course the spikes pop out.
I was actually thinking the idea of actually this guy being kind of this pale gray and darken as it goes down, so you've got that kind of horrible effect, almost like his arms are burnt, and that hand that turns into a maze. We put like brass nails studded into the flesh part.
So brass nails are to you what moving parts are to me, right?
So then when it closes the hand, and the hand changes texture or whatever, and those brass studs elongate into your mace kind of thing.
I like that. Yeah, I love it. The Faceless Cave Berserker maquette, we're gonna spend the money to have this guy be CG. I would urge you to refer to Mike's sense of creature design, And the art of Hellboy, there's a shitload of ideas for Samuel that were not possible to do. That sense of design would be great on the Berserker, for example. And there's actually one of the creatures you designed that I would almost want to take and just make it the Berserker. A guy with a huge sort of humpy back and tiny legs.
I was thinking that with the iron shoes, because when you punch him out of the iron shoes, the legs are just pegs. He doesn't have any feet. They just insert into these big
like
metal.
G.I. Joe.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that. But then when he falls into the pit, we should see the legs and
the sad little spindly
yeah,
legs.
Exactly. I like that. Then the Golden Army maquette. Obviously, this is an element that we're gonna have to design first. The robots are hard to design, and I feel that we're gonna have one type of robot at the end that is very much cued out of Mike's sensibility, which is the pulpish, sort of big torso, 1940s Nazi mechanical creature where we screw the head in. But I was thinking that the Golden Army, when they're in repose, they're like eggs. So it's just a bunch of mechanical eggs, like you walk into a supermarket aisle. And when they unfold, I would love to keep sort of a really bulky golem-like shape. And I thought maybe having the ribs originally are closed, and the ribs move down, and you reveal fire inside. And you see gears, red hot gears moving inside. So the machinery is like red hot and they're moving. You should get a sense of mass and movement and almost regal. They don't move much, but when they hit, they connect. And there's sort of a helmet piece here that is kind of the face. The light pushes through and it backlights the eyes. There's an artist that I like a lot that I would love to reference that is called Ciccione. And Ciccione does great texture, so the gold is very hammered. It's not shiny, Christmas ornament. It's really like hammered, almost old gold. It feels very foundry made. They're not shiny surfaces. They're very pummeled and damaged. Yeah. I think that's the sensibility I would love to have. Then we go to the elemental maquette. The idea with the elemental is really cool, but it's very difficult because it's always changing. When it reaches out, the leg elongated, and when it moves, it leaves the body behind. It's like it's reforesting the city as it moves. Then we come to the Angel of Death, which is an insane creature with eyes on the wings. What I was thinking is that the idea would be to make a very long face that is almost like skin is hanging loose, and the jaw, not the lips, but the jaw could be eccentric. So it's really like a dislocated jaw talking, and make the eyes like that favorite of mine, a sphincter. So the eyes would grow and dilate and close, but there will be no eyes inside.
But the only color is in the eyes and the wings.
And the wings.
That peacock effect.
Yeah.
And those eyes should blink.
Yeah, those are gonna blink, but that will be digital.
Right.
We'll do the wings for the overs, but when you see them from the front, they will be digital. And the idea for the arms is to make them very, very thin. Don't think linearly. It's a very spindly creature. If like the Baba Yaga leg, you want to go wooden, or if you want to go make them sort of branch-like, or you want to make them super skinny to an impossible point, I'm all for going to places that feel organic to the design, but they don't necessarily make sense. Any questions? No one has any questions after reading the fucking screenplay? Nothing. I love you guys. Now, let me ask you, would you extend this design to like the temples?
That's up to you.
Like a couple of circles, you know?
Sure. Why not?
I think it could be, so that you get a sense that these are royal markings.
Okay.
Now, we need the anime hair do.
Yeah.
So it's much more hair.
Oh, okay.
It's
So
covering
bring
the
it
entire-
more.
Yeah,
okay.
like an anime character.
Okay, so cover all that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that.
And it's almost covering his eye.
Almost.
A little more coverage on that.
It's too bulbous, like a little flatter.
Too little.
Okay. Yeah, you could. Just pulling the nose up like that only works so much.
I still like the flatness of this. I don't want to fuck with this, but I don't want to make him. I think it's about bringing this diagonal.
More forward, yeah.
You know, what I think would be cool is if we design like a funnel structure and you actually articulate like with a steel plate this. You know, because that is going to give you the illusion that he's really all gas. Because right now, what I love about the Mignola design that this guy does really well is that the arms are curvy. You know, this is more the way he should look. But I think this looks too much like an astronaut suit. You know, and I think that it may be the thing to do to use this form of vest and belt, and we can hide a lot of mechanics here. And do only the scape thing on top of the vest and this little thing on the back. Now, these are quills. Porcupine.
Yeah, that's why.
These are a little too wavy.
Okay, that's straighter.
These are fine, but these are quills.
Straighter. Do you want me to take this eye out completely?
It's like negative painting. I like this.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like the hands could be kind of extended, almost like talons, you know, and stuff. The demon stuff, like you were talking about, where there's like a lion on someone's knee or something like that. You know, it's like there's like a face motif, like with
which is cool. But you know what? If you want to go that way, I'd make this thing almost completely flat. I mean, you're gonna need something there, but just take the pattern off it and just do crafts.
That's another way. I like this.
Brian's head is Brian's head, yeah, is about here. With this.
What I was going to ask you for expression, since we're going to have the patented you know, nostril
Right.
flare, you know.
Yeah, right.
I was thinking if we could put a couple of bladders here, plays like a bull, but that also goes with the mouth. Is, you know, so we can have one like ready to fight.
Cool.
Yeah, we'll come down like. Were you originally going to do any CG wings? Nothing at all?
Forget about it. There's no.
Yeah, so it's all fully practical. Yeah.
So we need to go from them being open, they're closing.
Well, the problem is the mechanical eyes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, right there on the edge there.
And it will work with a robe hiding his arms.
Yeah, we've already prototyped black tape, and it's actually okay. It kills the silhouette, but we're working with making the robe a different color than the black tape. It's going to look good.
But what I was thinking for him is that he projects the mouth a lot, you know, very much like a fish.
Yeah.
So
Okay, I got you.
Like an English, the exaggeration of an English. Oh yeah.
Ooh, yes. No, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a role for the prince and peasant. Oh, yes, Your Highness.
Yeah, okay.
Allow me to kiss your eyes.
Oh, but I can't let you. Come in, Dougie. Okay.
Yeah, well, the only problem I see in the skull is if you have it like this and it's attached like that, and you raise your head a little bit, you know, this needed maybe to curve a little more.
Yeah.
Or make a third jowl.
We can extend it. We can make something else to supplement this.
You should make maybe a third jowl that is all, you know, so he can have a jiggly bigger one.
Right.
Such a benign little cat. I love it. The idea is to go more surreal. You know, we don't want to do stuff that you feel you've seen. It's about what we can do with not so much money, but with a lot of creativity in doing and applying those things, you know, because I really think this movie could be a difference, could make a difference in the way the creatures are designed.
Oh my God.
Johann Klaus, at your service.
I like him.
Well, the idea was to have a character that was very much a guy that goes by the book. Johann is Prussian, very Teutonic. This goes here, you have to do this. And Hellboy is completely the opposite. He's a disaster. Johann tries to direct his attention to the manual and the procedures. And obviously he fails miserably.
Try me! What's my flaw?
Your temper. That's the best of you.
Johann, I think is amazing. We all knew what it was going to be, but I don't think any one of us really expected it to be as different and as bizarre as it turned out to be.
John Alexander as Johann Kraus. It's a role that he's also shared with another actor named James Dodd.
Spectral Motion have done a great job on the costume, but it is a very, very cumbersome costume to wear, which automatically limits your movement. And then, of course, to hide myself in the actual helmet itself without the helmet appearing too enormous, they've lifted everything up so it's actually taller than me. I think he ends up about 6 foot, and I'm 5'7".
The design of Johan, it was pretty much a regular, like a workman sort of suit, and a dome, quite heavy, very limited vision.
Cut. You didn't go near to the mouth. You need to go much deeper, much deeper. Show him where?
Yeah.
Is that all right?
That's right.
Okay, excellent.
Right away, guys. Come on.
Johan's head is sort of built from my temples up, so my head itself is completely hidden from nose down in Johan's neck, which is it's a fabric which is sort of malleable, but it is very tight because, of course, it has to maintain the look of a neck.
It's a challenge, trying to do dialogue through like a scarf really around here, which was the neck.
The helmet is what we would consider his visage, what you identify him with. And that is a complicated little piece of animatronic work that was designed by Mark and his team.
I've got 2 animators that are on little radio controlled. One animates my mouth, which is basically 2 little things that pop up and down in time to whatever I'm saying. And the other one controls how much smoke you can see in my glass bubble.
His dome is filled with smoke and a gaseous sort of mystical element that is Johan. He expresses himself by these little bits and pieces that Guillermo wanted. He wanted sort of like an insect mouth with moving parts, so that when he's speaking, these little things move around and things spin and twirl, and he's got little sort of flaps that come out when he's agitated and upset and gassing off, kind of psh, you know, thing that happens if he gets excited about something.
True language. Cut. Very nice. Very nice.
I think it takes him probably about 35, 45 minutes to get into the full rig, and then he can't see, and he can barely hear.
Johan?
Right away.
John?
Yep.
Look at me, over here. Remembers, very peculiar. Huh? All right, okay. Here we go, one more.
At first, it was a real challenge to concentrate on what your dialogue is, and there's servos going on in the head, and trying to find your mark.
You have to give it time. You're such an effort of doing the thing or saying the line that is trampling over the scene. So wait for my instruction, John, Ron, and then once you have the second vowel on this, you turn around and go, okay?
I did quite a few things with Abe, Doug's character, and his vision is pretty limited as well. So we keep getting props. So we're exchanging a lot of stuff. The 2 guys that can't see are exchanging stuff, and it's a challenge.
You know, imagine, take your time, John. We're here 2-3 hours. Either you do it good or you do it wrong. We're gonna be here 2 hours. So let's take your time.
So there's very little movement. I constantly have to fight. You know, when you're naturally gesturing or you're nodding or you're looking around, as humans, we can turn our heads. He can't do that very easily, so I constantly have to fight the costume to try and get as much gestural movement out of it as is humanly possible.
With Johan, it was quite tricky because trying to find movements that went with the dialogue, so you pretty much had to choreograph your hands with the dialogue. So every time you were learning dialogue, you had to learn the movements as well.
What I need, John, is you do this, and then let it rest there for a second, because you have a little tendril of smoke attached to your finger, and very slowly lower it down. All right, but you gotta give me a second to showcase the tendril of smoke. Like the electric light would say, it's a living thing. Okay, so you go slower. One more.
We're going to be on all 4 of them. Yeah. From behind, turning
wherever you want from behind. Okay, that was great. Yeah, 13 is the best.
With Guillermo, he has in his mind what the character's going to be doing in that particular scene. So you have to approach a scene with an open mind.
The way we sort of approached it in the end, Guillermo was very much like, I want him to be more pedestrian, more human, but he's incredibly gestural because, of course, he hasn't got a face to make lots of expressions as we have. He's got his hands and his body.
That's what Guillermo del Toro brings out in the characters. That human element just gives that extra believability.
Okay, like that, but well.
You were very brave vouching for me. How do you know I'm not the enemy bringing me here?
This whole story of Hellboy II really hinges on what was created in the underworld and how there's a Prince Nuada who's come to reclaim the glory of their world, and he's united in feeling and in physicality with his twin sister, Princess Nuala.
The princess was very hard to find. We needed an actress that looked otherworldly and talked and behaved like royalty, but not in a smug way, but that she seemed so exquisitely fragile and exquisitely raised, delicate. She exuded royalty without having to have an attitude.
We're twins. Even as children, a link has bound us, one to the other.
The brother and the sister, they are literally opposite sides of the coin.
The prince and princess represent sort of one person who is divided by their conscience.
She is everything he isn't. You know, she's sensitive and kind and has empathy, and the prince is really sinister. It's his decision to come into this world and unleash the terrors that he has at his beck and call to force us into action, to fight against him.
Behind you!
As much as his sister is very honorable, as is he. You know, he was at war with his father. He wasn't in kindergarten, you know, learning how to put blocks and things. He was on the back of a horse learning how to fight.
I don't know that we consciously wrote that character with him in mind, but it became very clear very quickly that Luke was the guy to play that part. We knew he could bring the weight and the emotion to that character and the sympathy to that character, and still the toughness that character needed to have.
You may have mused in the past. Am I mortal? You are now.
The prince is essentially like Geronimo. He's like the last of a race, or the last warrior of a race. The humans are pushing and pushing the magical creatures away into the outskirts of society, the underworld. And the prince essentially says, no more.
His intention is very clearly to wage war and to balance the scales, but to get there as smoothly and as quickly without as much pomp and ceremony as possible.
He has the key to awaken the Golden Army. So it's essentially like if Geronimo had a key to a nuclear bomb.
4:15 a.m. We normally get here about 2:45. And Javier, he was filming this. We said part of the deal was that he could film this as long as he got up really horribly early. But, you know, 4:15, it's not so bad, is it?
Makeup. Firstly, I want to say I hate having my makeup done that long. But it's truly not a process I enjoy. Well, at the beginning, it was like 5.5, 6 hours, sometimes 7, because it was an experimentation.
Because I remember looking at the call sheet and saying, that's the earliest call time I've ever seen. I mean, I was just going to bed, and he was getting up. And that's 8 hours, and then you start your day. And then they say, that's a wrap, and everyone goes like that and goes home, and you have to go back into makeup to take off that, which takes 2 hours.
It's so intricate that you can't rush it. So I can't sleep for the first, 3 hours of the process. Anyone who's done makeup in film knows that you have to try and get some rest because it's, you're doing 5, 6, 7 hours before you even step on set. And then you do maybe a 14, 15-hour day. There was a couple of scenes in the movie where I have to do from waist up, shirtless. And those days were 8-hour days. So I was getting picked up at maybe 12:15 a.m. to start my workday at 8:30 in the morning. And that's tough, that's demoralizing. We did 7 weeks of this, and you literally get just completely confused, sleep deprived and, gooey. You don't know where you are. Painting a grown man's body with the colored paints. Nice. The thing about Hellboy is that you can see they put everything on a running track.
what they do quite seriously is they, we train, which I do. I get here at, 2, 3 in the morning, and I run. You didn't see it, but I jump out and I run this track. It's very considerate of the producers. This is what a proper trailer looks like. Really. So when you're finished, you forget about the process. But 1 minute before you sit in that chair, knowing what's ahead of you can sometimes be a little daunting, to say the least.
So we would need to stick with this palette for the prints, too.
Okay, yeah, we'll just
I don't think you need to uniform the palette.
Okay.
So that we don't have a warm and a cold one.
It's just more yellows and pinks, basically, because it's bring the flesh tones.
This is very nice.
Yeah.
But this dark edge I don't like.
Okay.
Take the time you need, because this is a very important test.
I was initially going to be having a prosthetic face, like Luke. We were both going to have a prosthetic face because I think it meant that we were wanting to be made to look as alike as possible.
Would you enhance this edge more than the center?
Yeah, I think you might be able to put that in.
So if you do that with like an angle, even if it blushes out, almost like Japanese hair brushing.
A definite kind of thing.
Yeah, like a Japanese.
It's her makeup.
Yeah. Wow, now that's very nice.
I feel quite pretty now.
Yeah, you do look pretty. That's very nice. Is there a chance now that this one that you put here could have a little more depth?
Darker colour.
Darker,
this thing,
yeah, just a little trim.
Sure, so it's a definite line,
Yeah, but like this, like what you did, exactly. She was too spooky before. She looked like Bride of Marilyn Manson.
She's pretty now, isn't she?
She's pretty and spooky.
Still spooky. So I think the idea was with the prosthetic pieces that they'd slightly manipulate our features to make them similar. And then it just didn't really work out for me. Luke still has his, and it works for him. He looks ravaged, and it means that he can have indents in his face that makes him look worn and sort of war-ravaged.
You see the idea, look straight, look straight. The idea what they do is they line it with the pupils. Directly above the pupil, looking straight. Look straight. Straight head.
They thought the prosthetic thing would work, and it sort of came about that it didn't really work for me, which I'm quite relieved about, because it's not that pleasant having something stuck on your face and then peeled off every night.
That's a good correction. How did you do it?
Magic, I think it can come a bit lower, but without it getting too lopsided. There's definitely more material that side than this side, but maybe we can come in from underneath.
For Princess Nuala, it was important that she looked pure and as sort of clean in a way, because, you know, she's the antithesis of the prince.
She looks good. Before she looked like a henna with raccoon eyes. She's gorgeous.
I'm glad you're talking about the piece.
Now you look beautiful. Therefore I can say it.
The princess can sometimes look very beautiful, but then also sometimes look quite frightening, which I think is great. I think that's exactly how it should be, because it's otherworldly, and if it just looked beautiful, then I think it would be too modern in a way. It has to be more than that. And I think an element of danger is good. This is the third time we've done this scene.
When's the last time?
Oh, I hope so. I really hope so. I thought it was going to be the last thing we shot.
The prince has a sidekick named Wink, who's about 8.5 feet tall, and one eye, seemingly indestructible. Truly badass. Truly badass.
Oh my God. The scope of everything that we had to do was something that I noticed immediately. In particular, a specific creature that really caught my attention was Wink, because Wink really put it into my head early on when I first read the first draft that we were really going to be challenged here. This was something that we'd never done before, and it was something that Guillermo, in his initial discussions with me, imparted the fact that he really wanted this creature to be unlike anything else, that he wanted this creature to feel like a real living creature, like we went down to the zoo and borrowed their Wink.
Because I think the camera likes to see something real. And the audience, even if they don't realize, even if they think it's CG or even if they think the CG is real, they get a sense of that we're mixing it up. Mr. Wink is over 7.5 feet tall, and he's massive, and it's practical. There's a guy inside doing every bit of that fight. And his hand, the hand is controlled, is mechanical. His face is this big and is radio controlled, and it just looks like an amazing creature. It's gigantic.
You say hi to Maddie? I was afraid the first time I saw him, you know? I was. I don't know why, but I was. A roar?
For me, the design process starts with reading the script and looking at the concept designs that Guillermo has come up with some of our concept artists. I look at those and I try to start to get a sense of what kind of expressions it's going to have to make. And I break those down into what parts of the face are going to move, how they're going to move. Like, if you look at the squint in here, this is although it's not a human, there is something very human-like about this shape. So the squinting action gives it a kind of a human emotion. And that's something that is a mechanism, cables and levers, that are imitating the way real flesh moves. So although, of course, we use anatomy as a reference, it's not something that we can really rely on when we're designing a mechanism, because we're working with servos and levers and things like that. But we use it as a guide.
I remember my reaction when I first saw the animatronic head. I was like, I saw footage of the animatronic head, and I thought it was a CG test. I thought it was just, computer graphic test. And it wasn't. It was just a video camera taping the animatronic head. And I was like, this is ridiculous. It's so fluid and real and alive. Blinks, nostrils, like snarling its teeth, moving its mouth and lips. I'm like, it's insane.
I think the team really came through, and the biggest challenge turned out to be one of our biggest successes.
Seeing what Spectral Motion has done with that character, having Brian Steele, who was on the first film, play that character, the animatronics have gone into his facial expressions. It's the best creature face I've ever seen as far as performance goes.
Oh my God.
Wink has 3 different heads. I've got a stunt version, I've got a half stunt version, I've got a full-on, wow head that just is used to convey all the emotion because it's got brows, it's got mouth. It is the wow head. It's hard not to look at it and go, wow.
To control a creature like this, or just different kinds of creatures on set, we use a lot of different methods. Wink is analogous to an actor. It's a guy in a suit, but when it walks on set, it has to be able to take direction just like an actor. It has to be able to emote and basically do anything that an actor would do on cue. So his face is controlled with these radio controls here. and every function of his face, whether it's an eyebrow or a nose flare or the squinting action or a blank, is controlled by a puppeteer, a live puppeteer. It's the most flexible way and the most reactive way to do it, so you can be right there with Guillermo as he's directing.
Brian? Yes. Remember the movement we arrive at with the chest? Yes. Don't do the heavy shoulder, do that. And you used to do like an expansion of like that. Yeah. Okay.
The puppeteers know me. They know my movement. They know what I'm leading up to. They've worked with me before. We have a telepathy involved then. Like when we do a rehearsal, I'm moving my face a certain way, you know, like it's conveying this push for the character. And then Mark Satrakian knows where I'm leading with that. Mike Elizalde knows where I'm leading with that, so then it gives them a feeling of what they're going to do with the face once I put the head on. And then I've got an array of different type of like stunt hands.
This thing is really scary. It is a very powerful and complicated mechanism. You can see it's got a lot of gears, and Guillermo loves gears, so I threw lots of gears in. This fist is not just kind of like Hellboy's giant hand, but it's also a weapon. So it starts out like that, and then it basically launches off of his arm and smashes into stuff. This fist here is made of foam. It's soft enough that we can hit people with it without hurting them. So this is our stunt fist. This fist is a combination of fiberglass, and these parts are all made of polycarbonate. So Wink's left hand is a flesh hand. This is his real flesh and blood. And this is worn like a glove, and there's actually a mechanism inside so that the actor, Brian Steele, can work the wrist, and he can work the fingers, and he can grapple with it. He can, turn it into a fist and punch. It's also very tough. The mechanism can flex and bend, so when he's doing stunts, he's grappling with people. He can do that and it won't break. Very important.
You look at the suit and he's obviously got this huge mechanical hand. He's got an animatronic head that I look out of the mouth of. I'm on 9-inch leg lifts, and the suit itself weighs about 130 pounds.
That's huge. If you've ever had to carry a bag that weighs 100 pounds, it's not an easy thing to do. And he has to wear that for hours on end. He's a very unique individual. He's very durable and never complains.
If Brian Steele doesn't complain, I don't complain. Because I watched him wear more weight and make things happen magically on film in these characters that he played. None of us have anything to complain about if Brian Steele's around.
Wink time. From start to finish, I can get in the Wink suit in a little less than 45 minutes. And I can get in and out of it at lunch if I have to, and cool down. Because the suit, like I said, weighs a little over 130 pounds. But the heat involved, the heat that's generated in carrying that weight around, can become quite exhausting.
The effort he goes through just to make this character walk is just amazing, yet let alone fight. And you'll see it on the screen, just how well he portrays it, this character. And it's all due to the preparation he's taken, the bike riding, the running, he's constantly training.
So if I'm traveling? Sorry, I can't stop it. I'm sorry.
It's good. Trust me, this is all foam. It's all good. What we've led into with the fight training on this particular movie is to show that, one, Wink isn't just a mindless character. He's fought many battles, and basically what they're trying to do is to take all those elements and give him many different styles. He isn't just like this creature is like wants to destroy Hellboy. He has a method of fighting.
Okay, so it's going to be this one first. Okay, then this one, then I'm gonna graze you in the stomach with this one. Setting you up. Bam! The big opening.
He has all these toys like the mace, the chain, and he knows how to effectively use those. And you can tell by when you see Wink, he's got scars on him. He's lost his eye. He's obviously lost his hand. It's been replaced by a biomechanical hand. He's got scars on his chest. He's got all these armors. And the thing is like, how did he get those?
Beautiful. Now rest, I'm gonna put you on film.
Guillermo will push me physically and mentally to the limit to get what this character needs to look real. He will absolutely exhaust me to make sure that he gets every last bit from me. I always tell him, it's like, I will leave blood out there for you, you know, and he makes sure that I do. Good night.
We do it because we wait from the
Got it.
I know you want to laugh so bad. I can't take it. I can't take it.
I did a shoot step.
If you shot half the bullets and aim twice, it's better. No.
So excited. I want to die right now. Abe, take your gun and shoot me. This is
Yeah,
more fun.
also, if you could avoid saying boom boom while you're doing it, it would be better, because you say boom boom.
Red, we have company.
There is, on the beginning of the movie, a horde of savage wild tooth fairies.
They're little evil guys that can be cute, but are small. They're about 9 inches tall.
There are thousands and thousands of them that descend upon them to eat them.
To do that as a practical effect would be practically impossible.
They are nasty, wild, savage little creatures that feed on bones and calcium. So they need to eat the whole human to get to the bone. So they're not pleasant. They don't leave coins either.
The process began immediately with figuring out what the basic underlying tone of the characters were in the script. I got some sketches and I got to see the maquette, and then we did some early rig tests and early model tests that were really rough before we had the final maquette. A rig in animation is basically this rigid, static object. It has virtually no life in it. They make it very symmetrical because you need as broad a range of movement as possible. So you stick in a bunch of controls, or joints I should say, to move the surface of your model. So you want to put in as many controls as you can to give you as much control over the surface as possible, but it needs to be intelligible. The animator needs to be able to do it hierarchically so that it's controllable. Otherwise it looks like 747 and you go in the cockpit and there's just dials everywhere. There's thousands of controls on the Tooth Fairy. And then we started to do the previews, of course. We would roll off of just developing the idea of what the character might be like, looking at motion studies and things like that, and we moved on into actually blocking out what the sequence would look like in the film.
The number of folks that we have on set at any given time varies based on the sequences that we're filming. Say the Tooth Fairy sequence. We bring out the animation director for that scene, myself, a number of folks that take care of making sure our camera data is accurately recorded. There's a lot of auxiliary information that we need to be able to do our work later that we need to gather on set and just keep organized.
Guillermo is one of the first directors I've worked with who really gets that, and he felt it was very important to have me there and to have other animators there so that he could really convey what he was after and ensure that the level of performance was going to match what he had imagined.
We're on set with Guillermo almost every day. There's not a day that goes by without visual effects being involved in some aspect of the photography.
So that you get the right rotation speed that you want, and then output that adjusted move to motion control to photograph these guys.
I was working in Hungary while he was shooting the sequence, and I'd have a couple of animators back here. They would be doing these little tests, and we'd see them come back, and I would show them to Guillermo, and he would yay or nay some of it. And I think a lot of the times we'd also have that there on the laptop so the actors could see it. I know he used the previews pretty regularly just to show the actors, for everybody on set to get some idea of maybe what the tone would be. But most of it did change pretty dramatically. We didn't really stick too close to what the previs was.
This plays better as a single shot, going from him to there and then going and seeing them borrowing and covering him. Let's do this one because joining them is going to give us nothing but a nightmare.
You want to give Guillermo some idea of where you're coming from, and of course then he bounces back immediately with where he's coming from and directs everybody. Then you really start to understand where he wants to go with it, and he hopefully has something to work with.
Cut! Edgar Anderson, Havel Fugel, come with me. That's it. Thank you very much. I like it. I think we can even, let's see again.
It makes it difficult in the sense that you really don't know what you're going to get until he's put it before you, and that's at the very last minute. But man, it's creative, you know, you feel involved.
About having him just get injured, sort of spin around and then...
We had this little silicone stand-in for the Tooth Fairy that they were going to use in various places, like on the goddess when she rolls through. And we would place it in the set for, you know, first sort of take of where it is, get it in the plate so we could see the scale issues and things like that.
Sorry, lady.
We help Guillermo decide what the best way will be to film his live characters if they need to interact with something that's completely synthetic and just not there on the set. The disadvantage of having things in CG only are the interaction for the actors. If there's nothing there for you to react to, then it's really up to the actors to sell the fact that there's a character there that you have to respond to, and it certainly makes things much more challenging, I think, for all of the departments if there's nothing there that's going to represent an effect that or a character that is just added in post.
For the animation guys, it really wasn't too important that we get lots of data from the set. It was mostly for the trackers, motion trackers, that they'd be able to lock down the camera as good as possible for us and give us a 3D environment that matches the actual set as closely as possible.
We need to be very, very careful about capturing what the film cameras are doing, because we need to reproduce exactly what the film camera is doing. So if somebody's doing a pan and moving the camera by a few inches, if we don't do our digital pan and move by exactly that right amount, none of the effects work is going to work.
They would put in LEDs to try and get as much tracking data as they could get. Same thing with movement. There's a lot of interaction with Hellboy and the other actors with these fairies, slapping them, getting bitten, so we needed body tracks that would match as closely as possible these actors moving on the set.
If we're putting anything into that scene, we need to know exactly what the lighting is. These days we've got a very high-end stills camera, which we stick in the middle of the scene where we're going to be putting our CG objects. We take 21 pictures real quick. It's about 30 seconds to capture it, and in doing that we can get all the light that's coming in from every direction onto this one spot. So we don't really have to guess what the lighting is anymore.
Still, thanks. Everyone still for stills?
Important information was actually, I think, gained from me sitting with Guillermo. As soon as he heard you had a question, he was ready to hear it and to give you all the feedback you needed. He was never short on descriptive, adjectives for what the performance needed to be and what he was looking for. That's pretty rare, I think, when you're working in visual effects. I would attribute it to his passion for the characters, but also I guess he's got a bit of a visual effects background. So he understands this stuff on a level that maybe most directors don't.
Here we do have to shoot that as a witness camera.
We are?
To have the clean pass.
We got it.
All right? Same thing. Now, the entrance to the Golden Army Chamber, looking that way, it's always green screen. Always, forever and ever. Green screen. No matter what happens, no matter which angle we shoot, it's green screen. Hellboy's fight is once he jumps up, I think it's a CG Hellboy. We need to discuss where you need me to be a landing point in the fight. We need to pinpoint it geographically. And where do you need me a takeoff point? Because there's things that we're going to need to shoot again.
So you need to shoot the takeoff and the landing.
Takeoff and the landing.
As real, and then digital takeover.
Takeoff and the landing, but some of the moves are very complicated.
But the plates, the background plate has to be photographed.
This is definitely the most complicated plate photography in the, as plates go. These are the most complicated plates to shoot in the movie.
We should take a look at the animatics, see where the camera angles are, what we can and can't do. Obviously, we're doing CG takeovers with Hellboy, so with a CG takeover, we will be able to light him in CG. So whether we're doing match moves of Jan's movement, so that we can actually project digital light onto Jan, so that we know where those sources are coming from.
But these guys don't have a light inside, they have a red hot interior, so when they come really close, they would affect the group of five.
But it's not that they're projecting out.
But nevertheless, with the Hellboy fight, is close proximity of a live action element to that. So we need to create a sort of Red Lantern effect. When the soldiers move, they carry their own light, so it's creating lanterns that move.
No.
But this sort of cast shadows through atmosphere effect. I think.
Well, there are two issues. One is, there's a suggestion of beams of smoke and at least, if not shadows, of shafts through smoke. And so are we going to smoke the setup for that, or?
No one wants to smoke it.
Oh.
So that's motion dismissed.
A question about 210 onwards. What is, if it's Jan, what does he actually carry?
We're having
We have a green arm fabricated by Ivan Perlman.
that big thing would be able to shadow him. At a certain point, though, whatever he's hitting, we've got another 12-foot guy that he's attacking. That we would need, either the glow effect or the shadow effect of that guy that he's battling.
I think the solution for your light there is horrible for you to learn, but I think it's almost like you need to create, like a shell of Hellboy in 3D and project it there.
Bear in mind that a lot of these frames are all 3D, aren't they? I mean, a significant proportion of them are all 3D.
In the Johan fight, 90%.
But also...
In the Hellboy fight, 50-50.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot.
Because what we've learned in the last few weeks is that every fucking body in this cast has a problem. Wink is blind, the fish is blind and deaf, Johan is blind, deaf, and severely damaged, and so on and so forth. And the fight in the gears is 90% real. It's a fight where you have a tumbler, and a mumbler fighting two Hellboys. It's gonna be a festival of meat.
There's a number of sequences here in the Golden Army Chamber. The CG aspect of these sequences is Golden Army versus either Hellboy or when Johan takes over one of these mechanical guys and goes to battle against the same type of robot. 99% of that will be synthetic.
We initially had some, it was a series of drawings. They were more like conceptual drawings. These, action poses. We were using that as storyboards, but it wasn't completely laid out.
Hellboy landing in the foreground. And this thing looks like it's toppling on.
It's going down. So we're counter panning as we're dollying?
No, it's only, if those are the legs of the robot,
right?
And Hellboy's coming this way, we're doing this.
Coming in, okay.
Yeah.
As Hellboy's going through.
Yeah, exactly.
I always pictured him sliding like into base.
No, he goes here. He slides there into base.
And then, oh, I see what you mean.
You see what I mean? His feet first underneath him while he's firing
Yeah.
as he goes through, you know?
So he would slide like that here, yeah.
And back then, there were two fights. There was a Johan fight, where Johan fights the robots, and there was a Hellboy fight. One of the robots comes and smashes Hellboy with a column from the chamber, and then Johan, he's taken over one of the robots, and he saves Hellboy from being completely smashed by the column, and then starts the Johan fight. That was too many shots. It was too long of a sequence, so Guillermo had both of those combined, using the best pieces of both.
So here I was thinking that we continue through this, and then he gets sucked in completely before we cut away.
Yeah, of course.
But in their animation, they never suck him through the gears. So I felt like, okay, it's the timing that we want. We need to see him go away.
And gears need to fly out.
Yeah. And this, I think we could do on the move if you want to do that as he's moving through the space. Now, the thing that we need to do for photography is just establish where you want all of Abe, Liz, and the prince and princess.
But that'll be models.
Well, we'll shoot photography of it.
I understand.
So that we can just put them on cards in 3D and hopefully not have to make them in 3D on stage.
But we have hero models of all of them.
We do, but it certainly would be cheaper if we could just take their photography lit the way you guys like it and just lay it in.
I was out there basically for the duration of the Golden Army shoot. It was a pretty hair-raising experience, really, because when we went out there, there had been no approved storyboards for the whole sequence.
So does Hellboy maybe save Johan and with the end of the Odyssey shot? Because it seems like they're all ending up in the same place. So maybe Johan's fighting, and one of the guys is about to pound him, and then Hellboy comes in and slams the arm
I
into
would
him.
need an extra plate, but maybe we can do it.
What would be best for us is if we shot the plate and then we can extend it or even end up replacing it. But at least we've got something for where you want the guys to be, the sort of move you want.
While we were there preparing for the shoot, we were still making huge changes to the direction we were going with the previs. And in fact, the previs ran on into the shoot. So people back here were prevising shots that were going to be shot the next day out there in Budapest.
Got it? Don't move, no. Focus, can you shoot at these little things? At the green, straight at the green.
During the shooting, there were some spur-of-the-moment ideas, changes of course, as Hellboy's fighting with the arm that Johan rips off and throws him the arm. He runs up on top of a robot. You know, he swats a robot down and knocks it over, and then runs up on top of it. And it was hard to think of something like that before you were actually on the set and in the middle of the fighting sequence. It wasn't choreographed before, that day.
I'm wondering, is it possible to flip it this way and then charge it?
We work very closely with his effects in terms of, what we can expect, because we can't see what they're going to develop, so we rely very much on them as to what Hellboy is actually fighting and how we can fight them.
All right, let's go!
Hellboy versus the Golden Army will definitely be a combination of live Hellboy filmed and CG Golden Army soldiers. So we'll have various representations of parts of the soldier that Hellboy can interact with, so that when we replace that with CG, it'll look just natural that Hellboy is interacting with a character that should look like he's really there.
Y aquí, Carlitos, empiezas a irte hacia ellos. Hold on. Segunda. Segunda, she's gonna be closer to them. And you guys need to be right at the front of me. More.
We have robot passing in the foreground. Pieces rolling. Head joins the head.
It seemed like he was making it up as he went along. It's like he had the whole fight in his head anyway, and he just shot the whole thing in sequence. And we didn't know which shot was going to be coming up next. In the end, it all worked out great.
One of the biggest challenges was just trying to find out what the first movie had and how closely we had to actually stick to that, because obviously there is a continuity, and that was really tricky. It's difficult creating new things, but having to follow from the first movie was very difficult and quite daunting. I mean, obviously some of the stuff was already set, although we have kind of moved things around a bit from the first movie.
Very good.
Working with Guillermo was a big appeal. He's just so full of ideas and really pushes you further by the fact that he's got so many ideas, and you know, you can really have a discussion with him about where things are going.
Sammy.
When I first met him, he did show me a lot of reference of stuff that had already been conceived, and he's so visual. He knew where he wanted various things to go, which is great because you know, you've got somewhere to pull from.
More here. Here.
So you want it? He certainly has given me the opportunity to come up with things, and he gave me a big basis of colour and shapes and background places from where to research from. From those creature things, I took elements of those into the characters that I had to design.
I can't shoot yet. I haven't finished my bottle of water. I don't know what to do with it.
Ron is fabulous. Obviously, because I wasn't on the first movie, he really helped me a lot with where the costumes were and what problems they had before and how we could try and solve them. We didn't actually have any of his clothes from the first movie to work from, so we had to recreate everything from scratch. There were certain things that Guillermo wanted changing. Hellboy, he wanted the coat to be much lighter, because in the first movie it was leather and it really did weigh a ton, and it was very problematic for the stunts. So we made a canvas version. We also changed the shape of it to be heavier at the bottom, so it kind of moved more elegantly. We changed his boots. We made his boots have a sort of idea that there could be a cloven hoof. So there's a little line running down the centre of the toe, and it's much more rounded. Basically more animal-like, but very subliminally.
Much better than the first one when you were floating in the tank.
Abe's costumes have changed quite a bit. We decided to use a fabric which is something that dry suits are made out of. It's like a matte rubber with a kind of stretchy backing. And then also Guillermo gave me a drawing that he'd done of the body shape. He wanted for Abe to actually look like the costume was actually almost sprayed onto him, so you could almost see muscle definition through the rubber. Quite difficult to replicate from his naked body into the clothing, because we've had to actually build the muscles into the actual item. So it was much more difficult than just making a wetsuit top. He wanted him in long trousers and short trousers. And then there's all the valves on top and everything. His clothing has changed drastically, I think. It was really fun to do, to kind of work out how we were going to make it look like this fabric was just sprayed onto his muscles. Selma is fabulous. When I've worked with smaller actresses in the past, it's sometimes quite difficult to kind of get the proportions right. But she's completely in proportion, and everything we put on her fitted like a dream. And she just wears it so fantastically. Really, went with everything I offered up. I think we sort of made her a bit more edgy, sort of much more ready for action, really. The feminine side has kind of really played down a lot. We've made a really strong silhouette, so you really see her body, and it's not so kind of covered up. To give her a bit of a funkier look. And I think she looks quite cool, actually.
You are here, so I assume you both remain in peace.
I think the Prince and Princess costumes probably have been the most enjoyable and the biggest challenge, because I was sort of given the opportunity to create these two characters who are so masculine and feminine and have a link.
I'd call Guillermo and say, you better be making her costume lumpy. I was getting really, joking, but there was part of me that felt like, wait, this is my chance to be the girl, and now there's this beautiful creature coming, and she's a princess, no less.
I think quite a few movies I've been trying to get dresses that are ombre into, which is where you grade the colour from one to the other, and all her costumes are ombre, which is so fantastic to achieve, because it's a really difficult process to get right. The prince and princess are very specific in their colours. They had to have almost identical shapes and form and colour. So most of the scenes, they are in either in black and red at the beginning. In the middle, it sort of goes away from each other. She's in blues and he's in a kind of blue-black. And then at the end, they're in the same colours again, which is a kind of ivory, bone and red.
Yeah, this is my Russian gymnast outfit, you know. Rocks.
The sort of shapes and texture are very organic. A lot of it is kind of comes from sort of bone and a slightly oriental feel, but I've put some elements of kind of 16th century and a bit of 18th century. You wouldn't know it looking at them, but there's just little elements from different periods, and then a little bit of modern overtone to tie it all together, really. The cream costumes have taken the longest because the prince's outer jacket is made of separate pieces of bone, all stitched and woven together on top of leather, and then they've all been painted into separately, so that's taken a long time because of the amount of action we have to make them work, not just to look good, but to actually move right. With the prince's costume, we've had to make a rubber version for the tumbling because it weighs so much, he can't actually do the somersaults in the costume. I love doing armour. If there's any way I can incorporate armour into something kind of slightly different with the bone and we've done metal plates on things. And it works, and that was something that was great to get on set. I've kind of had ideas in the past to create and then it hasn't quite worked or whatever, and those ideas I've used on this and they have worked, and it's really pleasing to be able to fulfil those ideas. Because there are things I've created on paper and realised, gosh, this might actually not work. Like the Golden Army Chamber, I was really, really worried going with cream costumes. But we've really painted into them and stuff, and actually it just so works. It's such a strong look against the set. I find myself, on this film particularly, on my hands and knees, lacing people into boots. Because I'm really particular about how things are placed on the body. You know, it's really important that where things are placed work for the actor. Otherwise, it just looks all wrong. So I can get quite pedantic about that. It's such a massive movie. There's so many different aspects to the design of it. It's a great movie as a costume designer to be part of.
I challenge Prince Namadama to the right to command this army.
What we tried to do is to give each fight its personality.
He had some very specific ideas about, you know, what elements he wanted involved.
You need to pull him fast.
Yeah, we will.
Or at the very least, Vin needs to stop doing this.
We should see when it's speed.
Yeah.
Okay. So this will be slow. And then this will be fast. That will be faster. Much faster.
Does he want to speed? All right. Cut. Very good.
I sit down with Guillermo, we talk about concept and ideas, and then my job is to bring my team together and develop these ideas.
Did you come down with two hands?
Yeah.
Step.
Brad Allen, what is great about him is he brings a sense of style, but also a sense of reality to the choreography.
When I design, I design for film. I do what's called, you know, animatics or cinematics, and I basically design the action, choreograph the action, and then shoot the action with my team. Our performers train so hard so they can channel these skills and abilities into that character. Hellboy's style is a very brawlish, kind of brutal kind of a fighting style, whereas the Prince is all about a lot of evasion, because Hellboy's very powerful, he's like a raging bull, and the Prince is light and nimble and fast. So a lot of his fighting skills revolve around being able to move out the way of Hellboy as he charges at him.
I said I want very few wire gags. I want to concentrate on doing them with trampolines and hidden tumble tracks, so that we really have the actors flying in the air, physically, not with just a wire pulling them.
We decided the level of action would allow us to include a lot of acrobatics and jumping around. So we found a world champion power tumbler.
But if you're looking for just the rotation through the frame on the top shot, you can do it. And then we'll take it out for the better high landing on the side shot. How about that?
That's fine.
That would help.
And the bounce back?
You can do it with this floor in, and we could shoot that now.
It's a very new technique. I don't think I've ever seen a grand fight stage with trampoline. But it's very difficult too, because the landing is the landing. If you don't land well, there's no wire holding you. You're gonna have a very serious accident.
We went through a huge, very steep learning curve in terms of dealing with the heavy prosthetics. At some points in the film, Hellboy is weighing in and above 240 pounds, and inside all that prosthetics and the costume, I've got a 160-pound man with all of that extra weight on top of him, and I'm asking him to do some crazy stunts and jumping around. People don't realize just how much of an effort it takes. They have to go through at least 4 hours of prosthetic work, of makeup, before they can even come on set to perform all of the action. And we do have some lightweight shoes, and the costume department is fantastic in terms of adding anything we need. But still, you can't get around the fact that we need to present Hellboy on screen.
He's coming back, takes a step forward with the lance in his hand, and back. Very nice.
There are no stunt guys on this movie. It's all me. Everything you see is just me. Yeah, you might see other guys walking around dressed up as Hellboy, but don't believe your eyes. I just, I take all the credit and do as little heavy lifting as I possibly can, because these dudes that they got doing it are really good at what they do.
That's the challenge of the human element, in that you can only do these amazing things so many times before you have to rest. What we don't have the luxury of is time on a film. Now, when you start production, the clock starts ticking, and we have so many shots we have to achieve before, time runs out, and that's it.
Let's try one last time and we move, Let's go.
So we're always under enormous amounts of pressure to get the shot that we need in the small amount of time that's been given us.
We do the top of him going through the gears, maybe the reverse of the lance, and we'll be in good shape.
I feel very strongly about showcasing human potential and human skill and real skill. And Guillermo's given me an opportunity to do that.
The set was like a land at Disneyland. It was troll land.
Working in the troll market was an experience that I'll always remember, just being on such a rich set.
It was one of the biggest, most intricate sets I've ever worked on, and full of 200 extras that were walking around with, head wraps on. There was not one human being in the whole lot of them.
I think the Troll Market is probably one of the most spectacular sets I've ever seen. Things that the lens will never see. People in the audience won't even notice, even if you freeze frame.
I can't even begin to describe it. It's like chocolate mousse, you just have to eat it. It was Guillermo at his most excessive.
One of the challenges that I think was interesting was that we knew we needed to create an entire troll market, which, frankly, those sets alone should have skyrocketed the budget 30–40%, but we kept the movie controlled, and that was a big challenge, was kind of keep an eye on the creator and keep an eye on the physical responsibilities of getting the movie to a good port.
Well, the Troll Market is an insane place. It's situated on location in a disused limestone quarry. It has a huge cathedral-like space within it, and we've used that as the framework from which to hang buildings and add dressing and so on and so on and so on. It's a great shape, it's a big place. It's going to be logistically a challenging one to work in, but I think it's well worth the effort to go there.
So construction has started here on the Troll Market. They started about 5 weeks ago, initially with the painting and then the buildings. And the main frameworks of the buildings are now up. It's now onto the plastering and detail phases, and also the painting. This is a map of the Troll Market showing the perimeter of the main space, and these areas indicate the columns of rock left behind to support the ceiling. And within that space, we are building all of these buildings.
It was the most idiosyncratic, strange, twisted, weird. And it was all basically like a market, like you'd find in Morocco.
The Troll Market is very heavily Moroccan/Indian influenced, where there's lots of curves in the architecture, lots of sweeps and rounds and zeros. It's highlighting a different space for the viewer, above and below. Whereas the human world is full of straight lines. If you look at the BPRD complex, there's straight lines on the floor. If you look at the auction house, there's straight lines, design lines on the floor. Whereas in the troll area and the below ground world, it's all full of curves and so forth.
One of the tricks of the trade is to try and generate more space without spending too much money. And this is quite a good example of it. We're building a forced perspective corridor of buildings. In the foreground, full-size people. In the background, smaller people. And in the further background, even smaller people. And that gives you the idea of traveling back much, much further. In a space such as this, the big question is, how do you light it? It's hard to light from the top. It can be done, but how do you get up to adjust the lamps, on the day of shooting and so on and so on? So there's much talk about side lighting and lighting from within in the buildings.
The color of the market was so uniform. From the earliest concept design, we knew that the depth was going to be created by steam and color lights. Because otherwise you get no sense of perspective. If you lit it all the same color, it would really model into a single plane.
Every little nook and cranny was full of props and set dressings that were so realistic.
The idea with all the coops is that they eat animals. They eat obviously cats and chickens and wild type of birds, but they hate canaries. Some of the cages could be of canaries that have been eaten. From the moment of the conceptual drawings, we knew that we wanted air conditioner units peppering the old European facades, because I think it was a really nice contrast to have modern AC units.
With the art department's work and the set dressing, and it looks incredible, it really does. It's such an exciting space, and it's just madness everywhere.
When we submitted the screenplay originally to the MPAA, we were calling these the opium or tobacco then. But then they came back and they said, well, that notion is R, is not a PG-13. So the idea I came up with is that there's a barber shop next to it and they're smoking human hair. So, people are here, they cut the hair over there, troll or human, and they bring it to pipes to be smoked. So people are smoking hair.
And then we're adding to that madness by having drips of water everywhere and steam everywhere, and it's just going to be, we're going to be blamed for a lot of uncomfortable people and wet people, and you know, a lot of people are going to resent the fact that they're indoors and still getting wet.
My character makes the journey through the troll market and goes into the map shop, and suddenly it's this incredible blue with thousands of maps all over the place.
Every detail, like you look at papers that are scrolled up, or scrolls, or maps, like details, nothing has been overlooked.
It's just so wonderful to kind of have an opportunity to work in a fantasy world.
Again, it's the attention to detail. You can't help but respect filmmakers that create that environment so wonderfully, authentically, so that the audience can enjoy it. You know that they care about their viewers. They know that they're caring about what people are experiencing. Because there's so much that just won't be seen, but maybe it will just create that extra percentage that you need to really believe that you're there.
Over my right side.
Over your right side, down, like on your own hip. Okay, here we go.
Guys, can we get Brian into number ones, and then we'll put Ron up into number ones, and stand by, clearing.
My will is in the bottom left drawer of my desk. Not the good desk, the old desk. Bottom left drawer. No, top right drawer. Wait a minute.
When I was reading the script the very first time, I was like, okay, that would be CG, I guess, that would be CG. How wrong was I? Most things that you see on the screen, as far as things that are living, are alive, in the sense that they've been created and another actor is bringing them to life.
I think we did a total of 5 creatures in the first movie. Here we've done a total of 32 or 33 creatures. So it's a much bigger scope for the film. When Mike Mignola first read The Troll Market, I think he was against the idea. When he read it, he was mocking me. He was doing the music from the cantina. But I told him, I'm going to shoot it completely different than that. I'm going to shoot it in a way that we can design a great creature, we can design a great set, and we're going to treat it like it's not important. You know, because in the cantina, every mask, every creature gets a close-up. Each one is displayed. And I thought, well, you know, that would be too close. So let's do it like we're following the characters around a real market.
I mean, what's amazing in this film is that so many of the creatures are real.
Beautiful. I love it. Fantastic. Wonderful. All right. Thank you. Now we're going to go back to work. Strider's going that way. You know, they go into the noodle factory. Ron, Abe, and Johan leave this way, and we end up in this ferry coupe. And we go in a little bit and see the ferry.
Guillermo chooses to do practical effects because there's no question they have a presence on screen that the CG characters don't have.
The directors are now finding a very happy medium between how practical effects can be benefited by CG, how CG can be benefited by practical. And we've got this marriage going on right now.
Here's my tooth. Now what about my hand? You screwed up my hand. Huh? I'm gonna put you with this. I'll put you with this. I wouldn't do it if I were you. Thinking, confused. Oh no, screw it.
It's really all about what is appropriate, which application works best. To give the audience something really mysterious to look at, you kind of need to combine the two. If you have a practical element and digital enhancements, then you're really using all the tricks in the toolbox, and I think that that's really the best of what you can put together.
The design of and the mechanisms for the mechanical stuff has seen, like certain products that I put out there, which is leg extensions, arm extensions, the development of how can we incorporate carbon fiber into the suits to take characters that break the human form even more. Do people look at it and go, that can't possibly be a guy in a suit? That's got to be some element of some kind. And that's the wonderful thing, is because then you add a CG element over that, and it's the audience is just in awe. And I just love that idea to be able to create this character, let it stand on its own, and let people wonder how it was done. I play a character called Fraggle. It's a humorous character. They're going to CG out my legs, so I've got these frog-like legs. I'm going to have my hands in here controlling rod puppet hands out here. So the proportion of the character is going to be so fun for me to play. Because, you know, you normally play all these bad guys, and for once I get to kind of go with my true nature of like throwing some humor out there with the dialogue.
I'm not going to be sure about that.
Tear out my eyes, lick my insides, and let it out.
When we designed the legs of the fawn in Pan, I think it was a system that I haven't seen before. But when we were talking about the creatures in Hellboy II, I said, try to milk that type of puppetry as much as you can, because it's relatively cheap to erase the green legs or the green arms, but it gives the body a really nice, interesting silhouette. Some of the creatures are so expressive. They can lip sync, they can have a full range of emotions. They are funny, they are evil, they are menacing, they are sweet. We are literally just taking animatronics as far as I've ever seen them taken.
Don't waste your time. We will not talk.
The bag lady troll that ended up being the crony, the guy that Hellboy punches, I thought it was, it was much nicer to have those huge hands holding a little razor blade while they were shaving the two-headed guy. The two-headed guy came from a notion from an underground comic that Richard Corbin used to publish called Fantagore. I thought it would be nice to have a super cute baby that was really a parasitic twin. And I designed the idea of him operating it with his own little hand, like his own ventriloquist dummy.
He left his emblem in the world above, and now there is talk of war, a war with the human world.
That's all right.
Nice baby. If you have something practical that's on set, live with the actors, I think some of that magic is still there. It's like, how did that happen? Where did this creature come from? I think it presents visually a more startling image. All of those subliminal elements of something that's physical are present. There's no floatiness, there's no disregard for the real physical world, which is inadvertent. I'm not saying that there aren't animators out there who can pull it off. I just haven't seen that many.
And the nice thing about practical is that we're in front of the camera, we can light it, we can do it many times over. And with a CG element, you know, you've got a long time in between like post-production and when we've wrapped, of like trying to fit that element into a scene. Now, it's like there's a great thing about just being able to do another take.
In this case, you're hyper-natured.
I know.
It's too hyper.
Yeah.
No.
I won't give you the combination.
Guillermo, whenever is humanly possible, we'll have an actor rather than a CG rendering, because the CG rendering has no heart, whereas the living, breathing thing that you're working opposite, that's right there in front of you, no matter how much crap he's got on him, there's a heart there.
If the creature is physically impossible to get with makeup and prosthetics and animatronics, if it's, in other words, too small or too large, then it goes to CG. And even then, we try to keep an element or two. If the creature is the right size and it can be executed by performers, then we go physical.
Give me some love.
What?
I'm good. How are you, Guillermo?
No. You did this.
Right, thank you, the thing that I kept going wrong and you were getting so mad at me.
And I never used it.
Because it's my fault?
No.
Oh.
Doesn't want rehearsal? I'll be Agent Steele.
Okay, the fat version.
Well, I wouldn't call myself that. And it would be 3, 2, 1, action!
Spin off.
And the regular move. Yeah, that's good.
I'm not doing that.
Sorry.
Did you say go? I I wasn't used to that. As soon as
Did I?
I stopped, we both stopped because after you said go, I was like, oh,
wait,
that wasn't action.
Was that action or was it go? Oh, well, now we know. Oh, no, now we know. We got it. So on go, we go.
I don't know why I don't do more action.
3, 2, 1. Action!
The car flipping and the elemental sequence is going to be quite a rush. There's a lot of preparation going on. We have a huge team of people working to make everything as safe as possible, which is always our aim.
3, 2, 1.
Prince Noada, who's the Hellboy's nemesis in this one. He throws a seed pod, it grows, it turns into a huge elemental monster and chases him down a New York street, destroying everything around. There's cars being flipped. We have some flying into hot dog stands. It's just relentless. It's one thing after another, and there's a baby involved. And of course, there's always going to be flames there and fire under cars, and it's just going to be all day, all night, effects night. Within our special effects, we have our specialists who, of course, we have the mechanical component.
3, 2, 1, action!
We have a couple of pure geniuses, or genii, should I say, who you want to fit something this big, it's a big machine this big, into a space that small. We have them. We have another team who are making the breakaway effects and all the arty-farty stuff, and anything that you need to kind of break and make lightweight, we have that team. And my job is to translate Guillermo's thoughts and his wishes and translate them into reality. There's restrictions of how many cranes we can have in there, because there'll be cranes for lighting. Stunts are going to have their own cranes there and having people fly through. So it could end up with this huge sort of like mess of puppeteering and strings and ropes and wires. It's visually a very different kind of movie. And with it goes a whole range of new effects. Every film has a slightly different range of effects, and this is quite exciting new effects.
Fair, good. And background action. And action.
Hello, good morning, dearie. I'm having an absolute horrendous day trying to catch my cat's blossom and sunshine. How was your day?
Pretty good.
Oh, I like them. I eat them. Cinnamon? Oh, what do you sell?
I saw crack.
Crack. Nasty habit, that is. I take it, I like it. It's cats. Blossom, sunshine, delicious.
Things are nasty, lady.
Oh, I see your lips moving, but I can't hear a word you're saying. That's the first to go. I hear the hearing. Oh, no. Oh, the darling.
Cut it. Let's go. Here, guys, stand by. Stand by to roll. We'll do background first, then foreground.
Brian.
Yeah. Stop, Brian.
Thank you, man. You're a fucking master, man.
Okay, stand by. Here we go, guys.
Great.
Ready? Clearing. It's the back.
You know that name?
And yours.
I don't know whoever said that being an angel of death was easy.
Is it long enough to go in the center?
Somehow, Guillermo likes to stick teeth on me, take away my eyes, and cover me in rubber.
For what it's worth, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Creating movie magic. Can't even say it. Movie magic.
What a horror. Pull the flame back and let's prepare for take.
Okay. Somebody shoot.
Like this.
I'm looking at her.
I'm looking at Liz.
Yeah. So we need to go like this. And almost.
What lens is that?
28.
Hey, Doc, can I tell you where you have a good reflection on the blade?
Yeah.
Raise it. No. Tilt it towards camera. There. Nice. Nice.
Okay.
Good angel.
So make a choice.
So decide or make a choice?
Make a choice.
So make
a choice. The world. Oh, yeah.
That's very big.
Should you say so, child? So child.
Yeah, good. I like that. Yeah.
So child. So child. Make a choice. The world or you. And you look at him for a moment, give it a wait. So child, make the choice. The world or him.
Him?
The time will come, and you, my dear, will suffer more than anyone.
I deal with it. Now save him.
It is done.
Stop, drink. Very good. John, very good. Thank you. John, it was excellent.
Is this reminiscent of anything else I've done for Guillermo del Toro? I'll give you a hint. Not gonna say. Not gonna say.
The Angel of Death is, as far as I'm concerned, the most impressive of the new makeups that has been created for the film. He's about 9 feet tall, and probably his body weighs, 80 pounds.
The Angel of Death, which I think is a very beautiful, beautiful character. Very dark creature that has no eyes. It looks kind of like a skull that has an allegorical bone structure. So we've built the character practically from the ground up. The wings will be animatronic. They'll open animatronically. The eyes will function. They'll blink and look around, and I think it's really going to be a very eerie and memorable character.
The Angel of Death is becoming one of my favorite characters I've ever played. The way it feels right now is that it could be one of those iconic moments on film that people remember, and I hope so. It's going to be one that I remember.
There's a kind of religious quality to shooting that sequence because of how unbelievably eerie and strange and mythic this particular character has been conceived and executed.
We're becoming the Angel of Death today. I say we because it is a team effort. You know, Simon, you don't have to be crazy to work here, do you?
It sure helps.
Oh, it never gets old, that joke. Well, the reason that they're smashing my nose in is because the Angel of Death has like a very tiny little rotted away nose looking thing, and so they want to flatten mine a little bit, and that's why this whole contraption has to be that and gluing down of my ears. Hollywood, glamorous. remember.
When you're sitting through 5 hours of makeup to become a character, and you're seeing it being built on you, and your physical form is changing before your very eyes, it helps you give you a visual understanding of who he, or she in this case with the Angel of Death, is. I believe that angels are kind of not male or female, they're kind of like unisex. I have to kind of like tap into that androgynous side of Doug Jones.
Because the face is so pronounced and built out, they had to build out the teeth quite a bit too to give her that sort of lipless, corpse-like look, sort of. And when they go in, it's very hard to enunciate or pronounce words around them because my lips don't close all the way over the teeth.
When you're taking on these otherworldly creatures and characters where it's a mask or a makeup that hides my own face or part of my own body, then that body language that I can do becomes even that much more important. Acting is a full body experience. It's not just about the dialogue coming out of the mouth. The story that we're telling, the communication that we're doing comes from the eyes, comes from the facial expression, comes from the hand gestures. All of that communicates something to somebody. It's like there's a certain beauty to the Angel of Death, even though she looks kind of hideous and kind of corpse-like in a way. But you can tell in her day, when she was created, she was like a glorious angel that was beautiful, but has been waiting a long time to fulfill her purpose. So she's a bit cracked and faded now and withered, and she doesn't know it though. She still thinks she's just gorgeous.
I think that a trademark of Guillermo's is creatures or characters that have an organic edge to them and also an architectural edge to them. That would be something like this. Here we have a hard crescent that's sort of reminiscent of a halo from an old Catholic painting. And it blends right into an organic being. It has carvings in it as well, though. This is why I have my arms shaved right now. These arms are extremely snug because they need to be as skinny as possible. Helps pull off that feminine Angel of Death kind of look.
Every character that I play under lots and gobs of makeup has obstacles to work through. Sometimes they're heavy, sometimes they're hot, sometimes there's a vision problem where I can't see where I'm supposed to put my prop. It has just become my reality.
Well, Guillermo del Toro never really spoke to me about the Angel of Death as this is one character that we didn't discuss ahead of time. So the script just said that she speaks in a raspy voice. So
I raised my pitch out here, and I speak in a raspy voice.
with the teeth, and I can't really do it justice, but
I get it kind of a little something like this to get it higher, and then rasp it up.
two things at once.
So, this is the finished Angel of Death.
Head, neck, mouth, arms, hands, all done here in the makeup trailer. What comes next is going onto the set for wardrobe pieces that create the torso and the skirt, the outer cloak, the veil, the hood, and then and the shoes, the tall shoes. And then we'll be finished.
The Angel of Death wings are more than just wings in this character's case. It also has its eyes on it. The face has no eyes, and the eyes are on the wings. There's 12 of them. So I wrote some software to control the eyes. Basically, settings for all 12 eyes, which includes the range of the eyelids, the orientation of the eyes, left, right, up, down. And it also has another feature. Because the wings move, because there are so many eyes, some of the eyes, when the wings are folded, are upside down, and they turn right side up when the wing goes up. But no matter what position the wings are in, the eyes always have to track together to look at things and converge properly. So this software allows me to change that in real time as the wings are moving. The other part of the wings, of course, are the wings themselves, which in this case are controlled by remote. And that's that. So the wings obviously have big servos in them that can move them around. One of the big challenges of making these wings is that it's not really just a pair of wings. It's supposed to look like 4 wings with a wing stacked on top of another wing. This is like one normal bird wing here. You've got a joint, another joint up there. Then there's a whole other complete wing here with a joint, another joint there that represent all the anatomy of a complete bird wing. So it's one full set of bird anatomy bones with another one attached onto it, and all functioning through being driven from a point down here. This whole rig weighs about 40 pounds, and Doug Jones wears it on his back, usually with a support wire to help him support it, but he can actually carry it without any support, and also hopefully make the thing compact enough that it doesn't make Doug's wardrobe look too big. Okay, now I'm going to get the wings into position.
That's the moment we've been dreading since you took them off last night, right?
Yeah, no idea. Yeah.
And you're walking center all the way to here. Everybody would be looking at you. To here.
Because this is where I bow to him?
Yeah.
Can I kneel for a second? Really, because it shouldn't, just to be nimble. Because
This thing is not a bad idea. But it's good for him to have that gesture as a color in the movie.
For me, the reason I like it is because I'm not here to kill him. I'm here to hope he might actually change his mind. Dear.
British Kada la Firodovin. Kada Rova.
The humans. The humans have forgotten the gods, destroyed the earth, and for what? Shopping mall. Greeders burned a hole in their chest that will never be filled. They will never have enough.
Is the Anna not nood? A knock net in the honey? Is the Anna not nood for COVID?
Honor? Look at this place. Where is the honor in it? This is where you hold court? In a derelict building in the shadows, in their refuse? I, your son and heir, dwell in the sewers with the trolls and the derelict ones. Ahathir.
So super slow there, right?
Sideways and cuts the head of this guy. We pull with the wire. Goes out of practice.
Let me see what happens there, if I can make it more horizontal.
Set. Set. And 3, 2, 1, action.
We should cut the tip of one retractable.
Okay.
And fix it here.
Okay. Let me just get that.
And what we can do is we can transmit from Luke to the king. And what we should do is probably put the plate on the retractable so that we can have it in place. And we just do a whip pan here.
3, 2, 1, action!
We should do the start of the run first. Sure. Before cleaning the...
You can do the POV. Are you gonna have a POV?
Yeah, we're gonna do the POV.
Yeah.
We're gonna do this, the POV, and the clean of the ring, King. All right, let's do it right.
Last day of Hellboy II, the Golden Sleepy Army.
And they pull a little faster.
Of course, we'll pull as hard as we can pull, but you see the limitations we have because of the track setup.
Yeah.
We will try.
All right.
Let's see how we go, huh, Don?
Okay, shooting.
From this angle, make sure they don't cross the bands.
Don't cross it.
Because if they do it at the same height, we're gonna have to spend a fortune replacing one band.
3, 2, 1, action!
Cut. Oh, that's good. Play back. Nice. That is the director. Okay. Print, check the gate.
Yes? My neck. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You gotta wait before I change my mind. Prince Namumu has finished the movie. Keep his lenses on.
Yeah, but what about weight?
Wink, everybody. And now, for the final number, we're gonna put the camera here, and all the elves are gonna sing with the singing dick. All the elves just go with the music like this, and the singing dick will delight us with Can't Smile Without You. Camera goes here, lente.
You know, I was in the very first shot of this movie, and I'm in the very last shot of this movie. That's another first for me. From June 8th to November 22nd, 2007. This is a surreal moment for me right now.
Everybody, this way, then that way. Ready? Very nice. All right. There you go. Ready? Thank you. I want to thank everyone from every nationality, even the English. I want to thank you very much. It was a very tough movie. All of you guys were really hard, and Saturday we're going to party just as hard. Please watch your boots for Van Lanning and have a lot of fun this weekend. Let's go. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Good.
Es vokenta are. Shini eso. Kengaremi olifanyefni.
Red, keep firing. Only that keeps them at bay. Red, do you read me?
You move, and I'll kill your Abraham first.
Come on back! I said, come on back!
Hey, I can be discreet if I want to be. I followed you and Myers, didn't I?
Like that. Look at that. Damen und Herren, Johann Kraus at your service.
Johann is a character that we found as we went along, because he was the last suit to come before camera. One of the first voices we spoke about was Seth MacFarlane. But I really gave up because I said, that guy is a cottage industry. Why would he be interested in doing, voice work?
Usually when people come to me with this kind of stuff, it's like a couple lines, but this was a substantial amount of material, and it seemed like something that, for a number of reasons, was just a cool, fun thing to do.
We'll make it worth your while. I assure you, we're quite capable. My God! Now build the dome!
So I was hoping to find the comedy in a guy that is really very pompous.
Yeah.
And very old-fashioned. He's a guy that is very eager and overtly educated,
I think we're on the same page, because you were saying you want him a little bit more kind of, not effete, but like just a little bit more...
Affectedly educated.
Yeah.
Not quite Stewie.
Yeah.
Stewie-esque in that, in that he is superior.
Right.
The only instruction I gave him, ironically enough, when we were going, I said, not Stewie. Do not make it Stewie. He's arrogant like Stewie. He's refined like Stewie, but let's see if you can do a Euro trash type of accent.
All right, let me think back to the German that I took in high school. Heute werde ich in die Stadt gehen, brachen Sie eine Krankenschwester. It's been a while.
One of the things I didn't know is that Seth MacFarlane speaks fluent German. He spent some time, I think, in Cologne. He has the perfect accent.
Ich und Carsten gehen heute Abend zum Diskothek.
I understand.
It'll come back. I had taken 4 years of German in high school by coincidence, and never really had a chance to use any of it until now. So I had to kind of dredge up some of the old dialect lessons that I had had back then.
Did they say mein Kleiner or meine Kleine?
Meine Kleine, I don't know, man. You were the one living in Cologne. We went through a couple of permutations, and most of the time, the guy nailed it on the first or second take.
A very peculiar tongue, spoken in the last place his cage was opened.
I was playing around with this the other night, so it's...
What is great about a German accent like that is that for some reason it's funny.
I've worked with directors who don't know what they want, and so they'll get like 100 takes, hoping to find something that sounds good to them. But he knew exactly what he wanted. He was very relaxed and confident about what he wanted.
Let's do one last one.
We did a certain number of takes to get it right, but it was almost German in its efficiency, the way he ran that session.
Can we try one slightly deeper?
Sure.
I mean, just a slightly...
It's a bit more resonant?
Yeah.
He sort of had this idea that the character would be very officious and very kind of overbearing, and at the same time, maybe a guy who doesn't really like to get his hands dirty himself.
Look at that poor little thing. Bought and sold on the black market, crammed into cargo containers, smuggled, abused.
I think it's good that you watch the mimicry of the guy.
Poor little thing. Bought and sold on the black market, crammed into cargo containers, smuggled, and abused.
Gotcha.
So bought and sold is doing with the hand, bought and sold in the black market. That suit, if you don't keep him alive, it's horrible. Whenever we had Johann a little more quiet, it didn't work. You had to keep him moving and gesticulating, and always had something to do, or the suit died. And I think Seth gave it that energy.
It's a tough thing, because you sort of have to cut through the fact that you don't have any facial expressions to work with.
Your file says you are the brains of the operation, and I must admit I am impressed.
There's a balance between projecting something that's just a little bit bigger than life to kind of compensate for the fact that you don't have any facial expressions to work with. But if you get too big, then you start feeling like a Saturday morning cartoon. Start feeling like you don't believe it. You're not acting, you're just doing a voice.
Smuggled, abused.
Fred? I think that is one of the geekiest moments of my life. I was completely in awe. I like that. Very, very nice, my friend.
Cool. I think it was a bit of a risk for him, you know, gambling on Family Guy alone.
Gentlemen, welcome to the troll market.
It was just an instinct that he had, and you know, I had a blast doing it.
Yeah, okay. Let's see what our little friend here can remember.
Friend? I'm a fun boy now.
Hellboy 2 presented us with a huge variety of animation challenges. In the beginning of the production process, Guillermo was in Budapest for 6 months, and we didn't get to see him at all, outside of the turnovers.
It was Guillermo sitting in front of a camera and watching the edit or watching previs, whatever he had that was going to get feedback on.
He knows what he wants. He has a picture in his head, and he's able to communicate that. And that comes across in the turnover very, very clearly.
He would act it out. He would pantomime it. He would do voices.
And what I wanted very much was have a couple pulling his hair, like, let's bring him down. Like using their legs to support in the you know, like Gulliver.
It was a lot of fun. He was very entertaining, but at the same time, that's exactly what you need as an animator. You need somebody who's going to really act it out for you. And that's one of the things that Guillermo really loves to do.
That gives us a springboard and a starting point to work from.
It's worked out really, really well, and we're going to try and do it in the future, regardless of remote location, because it's just really handy to bring up that little video and just get it direct from the source, exactly what Guillermo wants to happen in that shot.
And then as we've sort of moved through the project, he's really, our interaction with him has been more through presenting him with what we've done and then getting him to give us feedback in a screening room directly to us.
So he would come in and sit right here, right beside me, and we would just talk about the shots in dailies, on the big screen, and work through everything, and that was fantastic.
Let's go through it.
Okay.
There's one shot in the movie that actually was the one I worried about the most, and that's Abe in the tank in Broom's library.
Abe is floating around this area. And he's floating, you know, kind of in a, not a completely fetal position, but he's a little curled. But you can see him swimming very softly.
It's a single shot of Abe, but I knew the original movie did such an amazing job that I felt like, wow, we have an awful lot to live up to here. We better nail this, or we're not going to be taken seriously at all.
One more pass at compositing. It's very close to fine.
I love it. Yeah, it is. I love it.
So that was the shot I sweated over the most, but I think we pulled it off. The Tooth Fairies presented a unique challenge in that there's so many of them. You know, we're talking thousands of characters on screen at any one time.
They're crawling over all the surfaces, the walls, the ceilings, the floors. They're on all the furniture in the rooms. They start interacting with the characters. They're in between the layers of characters.
These guys are pretty close to camera. They're all hamming it up, and there's a lot of individuals in the crowds.
Guillermo said these guys are like crazy chihuahuas, and it presented much more of a character problem than a mechanical problem.
I started just going and collecting lots of animal reference. We knew the mouth was going to be a big deal because the design had just massive teeth, and yet we knew that the mouth was also going to close up very small. So I had lots of footage of orangutans. When you see an orangutan show its teeth. The mouth goes from a very small, closed, passive-looking face to this enormous thing very quickly. And performance-wise, there were a couple of little clips of birds that I liked where you had this really hyper-metabolic state. They never really quite stand still. Even if they turn their head, they almost bounce as they do it. The first sequence out of the gate was the medbay sequence. And the medbay sequence, of course, is the highest level of acting. Everything else was generally more physical-based and more tooth fairies as a swarm. And the medbay was just full-on character performance.
And then when it does that, it is looking at him, and it recoils a little bit, and like hisses at him with the open mouth.
We were very lucky that Guillermo is so involved in the process and working with the animators and working with us as performers, because we probably wouldn't have been ready otherwise.
What? Hey, shoot off the tip of my tail. Yeah, you little...
At the beginning of the process, you don't really know the abilities of this actor. As you develop the rigs, as you develop the face shapes that they make, going through all of this with Guillermo, his character emerges from it.
We start with one single fairy and build him in 3D and texture him and make him look the way that Guillermo wants to see. And then we take it from there through the animation process, through the blocking. So from the animatic, we go into more detailed blocking.
So the animation team will work up walk cycles, flight cycles, crawling cycles, and then we audition a range of those for our swarms. And we pick certain ones and go, yep, that's going to read well on the back wall, and this one's going to be better when he's up close to the camera.
We had other kind of different coloured grayscale fairies in order to indicate swarms and which ones were coming from which direction so that we can get feedback from Guillermo.
Guillermo will look at something that you've done and something about that will go, oh no, we don't want to do that, but that thing, and that will turn into a character trait.
And here, more or less there, they land on Abe's arm and they start chewing, and you should see them taking bites like a little Romero zombie.
The way they chatter their teeth, I remember that coming about in just that way. It comes out from a little bit of an animation test, and that gets refined through several versions. And then in some of our big swarm shots, you'll see a whole heap of little guys chattering their teeth when they get to an eating moment.
There's a shot where Marble is dead and lying on the floor, and it's just his skull and his hand exposed. And his whole body is covered in a swarm of fairies that are all doing individual little bits. There's one that's pulling out a tooth, and he's championing it after he pulls it out. And then there's another guy who's sort of just peeking in the mouth, and then he sticks his head in, and then he crawls in.
Damn!
You're really getting to see people sort of put an extra level of love into the shots. There's a shot with Agent Steele at the top of the stairs where the tooth fairies are clawing at his face, and Julia just went nuts with getting the flesh pulled around, the eye opening out. And that's the kind of stuff that you really feel like you're part of a family, where the animator hands it off to the next kid down the street, and that kid takes it and runs with it and makes it look even greater. It was the one thing that the animators can take home at the end of the day, that there's my guy, look at what he's doing. So it was the saving grace for us, but I also think it was the saving grace for the shots, putting in that extra level of performance on tons and tons of little tiny fairies that 90% of the world will never ever see.
The development process on the Elemental went through a lot of changes. We knew it was going to be big. We knew it was going to be, plant-like material. It never really got locked down until we had a maquette given to us by Guillermo. Once we had that, we were pretty much home dry, and we were able to match to it. At the same time that that's going on, we have the look development going on, where we're applying different shaders to the skin, giving it things like subsurface scattering and so forth, coming up with ideas for how to give it scale. And we ultimately ended up heading down a path where we were layering on a whole lot of extra vegetation onto the surface of the character that would move and be driven by the main movement of the character. So every time he punches his limb to the ground, you would see residual motion in the foliage around his upper body, and that gave us tremendous scale. When he first comes up out of the ground, he's giving off some steam and there's debris and dirt falling off of him, and also helps with the scale. He also had to convey some story points, and that's where animators come from. They look for the story. What do you need from the story at this point? And they use that as a springboard to find answers for motion and movement and characterization. Guillermo, he doesn't look at the animation as an effect. He sees animation as a performance.
You know, it's almost like he has another car in this hand and throws that car and comes down.
Sure.
And we follow that and make it almost, you know, a straight gun.
On other productions, typically you would have 2 or 3 people between the director and you. So the ideas have to get filtered through all of these other people, and sometimes you get extra ideas, sometimes good ones, sometimes not. But essentially you end up with a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and that's not a good thing. It's always better to keep that creative gap as tight as you can.
I think it should be 2 grabs, one like this, one like that, then go through the O, try to grab him, and when it fails to grab him, it grabs the O and yanks it.
And this was a tricky one because the elemental starts off as being kind of scary. He's a big monster, comes up from out of the ground, and he's huge, so we have weight issues. And how do you make something this big look feasible and heavy, but also dangerous enough that if you try to run away, it can catch up with you. And again, we have the whole weight thing potentially holding us back. He's got no limbs to speak of. He's got these massive long roots for arms and legs. And one of our main focuses there was making sure that the shapes that those roots formed as they moved were appealing. When an arm reaches out to meet the ground in front of it, you want to see that arm straighten as an animator. That's what tells you, I expect to meet the ground, I'm going to meet it. And when you break that arm and bend its shape, it's telling you there's some weight on it. But how do you do that with a creature that has no elbow, that has no wrist? It's just one long tentacle. Towards the end of that sequence, when the elemental has been shot and falls back, and we have a beat where Hellboy struggles with the idea of killing the last of its kind, we needed a moment of pathos where we as the audience get to see what a great loss it would be to kill this thing. I struggled with this a little bit, and we went around the houses on this one to get it to feel just right. But essentially it was really about holding back. We looked at animating the creature going through a thought process, but then you get an effect that I call hitting it on the nose. If you're telling your audience exactly what's going on all of the time, they're never going to get invested in that performance. If you provide a little gap for them to try to figure out what the hell's happening here, what's going on, they start to invest themselves a little bit more in that performance, and it actually has a meaning for them. So that's what we did. We just held back a little bit, had them do less, and have that animation be a little bit more contained, a little bit more introverted, and it worked. I think we pulled it off. As soon as that gate pulls back, you're blown away by how rich the environment is and how much texture there is.
Troll Market was great fun because it was something that wasn't so much about doing 20 or 30 shots of the same thing. We had so much variety and so much change, and just helped something that already looked good hopefully look a little bit better.
We had tons of pixies flying around. It was something, you wanted the air filled with stuff.
The pixies, they're great fun, and they've got a lot of, they hark back to Pans. I think it's a favourite character for Guillermo.
Guillermo is, you know, he's a huge fan of H.P. Lovecraft, massive fan, and you think he's always trying to jam in some kind of creature design from H.P. Lovecraft into his movies. I think if you look at all his movies, you'll see the influences in there. So we invented a couple of shots where we start high up looking at a pixie coop in the Troll Market, and 2 Lovecraftian creatures walk by pick one of these creatures out of the air and eats it, and then leaves, and you never see it again. Guillermo loves the Bogarts.
The original idea was that he was going to be something like an organ grinder's monkey. So that was going to be the original take of him. And with he's got a little fez on and things like that, and everybody kind of just reacts to him and go by. But as we started doing things and we did walk cycles and things like that, Guillermo started saying, look, actually this guy's really good. How about if we try him there? And how about if we try him there and try it there? So I think he's probably in, maybe 7 or 8 shots there. Anatomically, it's crazy because he has 2 arms on one side, an arm on the other side. He has 2 necks. One set has the mouth. He's got toes that are kind of as long as most characters' arms. And then he's got these sort of crazy French fry things over the top. But because this character was so small and dynamic and so posable, you know, you could turn his heads to look at each other and immediately you had a conversation between one character. So it gave the animators a lot of freedom to treat him in a much more pacey, punchy, dynamic way.
We had some trolls that we added.
We had the one guy in the suit, and of course, Guillermo got him in his plate, but he wanted to kind of populate out more of that character. On that kind of scale, one of anything, especially when you put it into the plate, starts to disappear.
And he allowed us a little bit of extra leeway creatively. We made him bigger, a little heavier, and we were able to add some little acting beats. We can look around and react to the environment that they're in. Also, we have a digital takeover shot where Hellboy punches a troll. That's the guy in the suit right up until he gets punched. When he flies through the air, hits the wall and falls down, that's all digital. The creatures in the background, creatures like the Strider, were very much what you would call throwaway. You know, we put 6 months of work into that character. It had a complete muscle system, looked amazing. The skinning was fantastic, and the animation was cool. And it's only in the movie for about 2 shots. I was kind of pissed about that, actually, when we first saw it. But then as I watched the sequence progress, I thought, you know, this is great. This is the right way to do it, because it's just adding a sense of depth and richness to the environment that you wouldn't get if you just showed them in your face for 10 or 15 shots. People get tired of that stuff very quickly. I think what we've ended up with is a sequence that you can go back to 2 or 3 times and still see something new.
It's packed full of life, you know, it's up there, it's on the floor, it's down low, it's great.
The other sequence that I'm really excited about is the Golden Army. We had a very compressed schedule on that sequence. Everything got backed up towards the end of the movie. And the challenge there was a scope issue, because we've got dozens of creatures in the chamber. We've also got hundreds on the outside of the chamber. It's a very tightly organized fight sequence, and these things have to look big and dangerous and cool, and we didn't have a lot of time.
The most complex thing was probably the modeling and the rigging of the character, because the character is made of so many individual mechanical pieces, and the way that it moves is so unlike the way a human moves, because it has to move in a mechanical, robotic manner. And all the tools that are available in off-the-shelf packages, and also the development work we've done, is based on rigging human characters. So we were starting from scratch on a lot of that stuff.
It's a really complex rig for the Golden Army. We had multiple controls for the way the plates go. There were multiple rotational pivot points. You know, it's not like a ball joint. Each axis is broken out into a different pivot. So it looks cool, but it was pretty hard to animate.
We set out and did a series of animation tests. We did walks, behaviors. We did striking tests, you know, where they would try to destroy things. So what we decided to do was capitalize on the structure of the character. So they wear these armor plating on their forearms, around their shoulders. So we added a little bit of looseness to those plates. So if they suddenly stopped, the plates would carry on. And through all of the ornamentation on the character, we were able to actually present an almost subliminal effect of weight.
Guillermo had wanted the legs, when you pull the legs up, you don't see a lot of this in the movie, but if you look for it, you can see it. When you lift the leg up, he wanted it to be like a watch chain. So he starts to lift and it uncompresses and slides a little bit, and then the foot picks up.
The sort of very early stages, we've just been working with flat shaded and wireframe approach where we can see the details of the geometry when we're building it. And then when we get into rendering, the first thing was getting the texture, this sort of hammered metal finish, then bringing in the reflections and the gold coloration. And then we need to start going in and breaking that up with dirt and oil and grime and all these things that kind of make them look real and give them scale. And then when we're passing that over to comp, We split it down again, so we give them the reflected light separately from diffused light. We give them a whole bunch of extra passes that they can use to isolate different bits of the robot in order to address comments like darkening their legs or lightening one specific bit of the robot.
The 3D team involved in creating the animation and lighting and rendering the passes, and it's the responsibility of the 2D team to make the passes fit the plates and look realistic within the shots.
So you start off with the green screen, the rig that Hellboy would jump onto instead of the robots. Remove that, any retimes in the shot, and then the shadows on the floor, reflections that the robots are casting, then the robots themselves. Hellboy is interacting with the robots, and he jumps on a robot. He'll grab his head and point the gun down and shoot it, because you've got to add all the extra practical elements, the oil coming out, steam.
The steam part of it, Guillermo had asked for them to snort. That was early on, that was what he wanted. There's steam in the eggs. When the eggs wake up,
the steam was always in there to give them the feeling of this kind of superheated metal from the glowing cogs. The oil was something that came about when they were trying to make the sequence feel more brutal.
One of my favorite shots. It's the one where the robot that was Johann, it got split in half, comes together.
And you get to sort of see all the cogs, all the mechanics inside, sort of forms back together. The camera pans across the shots, we're to another robot who's attaching a broken arm. You get a big close-up of all the mechanism coming out sort of from the body to reach the broken arm as he attaches it. It looks great.
The shot with the head, the crawling head, I think is the longest animated bit. It's certainly got the most characters in it and the most animation, the most man hours. And that's all hand animated. It's not procedural. It's an animator going in there and posing it out and making it work.
I'm really proud of just the look of the robots. I think they look fantastic. They look mean, and they look aggressive, and they look real.
The key to making those scenes work was crafting them individually and guiding your eye around what's a very busy set piece.
None of this is real. The tools are fake. There is no simulation. It's all just kind of an interpretive study.
It was the animators that went in and placed them appropriately, worked the cameras to make sure that you're looking in the right place at the right time. It's very easy to distract your audience away from the story point on the screen. So it was painfully crafted, and hopefully it's a big success.
On Blade 2 or Hellboy 1, I was self-censoring myself much more than I thought. But after Pan's Labyrinth, I said, well, let's lose the hair. Let's let the hair loose. And these guys gave me a green light to essentially anything I imagined. If it was within the budget of Hellboy 2, I could do it. Within that budget, we created a giant elemental, a troll market, an army of tooth fairies, an army of golden mechanical soldiers. I mean, really, a lot more creatures that are closer to my universe, if you may call it that. Nevertheless, everything comes from Mignola. Mignola is the root of all things in Hellboy, and at the end of the day, it is very fortunate that his universe and the universe I love in film intersect so much. And the 10% on film that we defer, most of the time, unfortunately for him, he loses. But I hope he's happy with the world, because all we do is honor his creation. The movies I do on Hellboy 1, Hellboy 2, at the end of the day, they're just altars with little candles to the universe of Mike Mignola.